That's what we ought to do. I don't mind defending my votes. Just last week, I was forced to vote on a suspension of the rules, a vote to give clean funding to Israel. Well, God bless America. I support Israel, and I want to stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel. But I cannot go back to the people of Texas and say I'm going to go send a $17.6 billion check, even to our best friends, when we have not secured the border of the United States and we are not paying for it. We cannot continue to write checks with borrowed money. We will not have a United States of America remaining to stand next to Israel. It won't exist. We won't have a dollar that's strong enough. It's not just FISA. It's what we saw just unfold in the Senate when they passed cynically taking out border security, sending over $60 billion for Ukraine, additional funding for Israel, a total package of almost $90 billion. By the way, that $60 billion for Ukraine, do you know how much our entire budget is for the United States Marine Corps? $53 billion. Was one penny of that $60 billion paid for? No. Just printed money. We're printing money every year to the tune of $2 trillion just to keep the lights on. And we're going to go write another $60 billion check to Ukraine? God bless the people of Ukraine. I want them to push back. I want them to win. I want them to hold the line and preserve their country. But coming to us to write them blank checks is not a strategy. And the Senate sent us over a $90 billion bill with $60 billion for Ukraine, billions for Taiwan, billions for Israel. And they do so without any mission defined. We've gotten multiple different missions told to us by the administration. They have no clarity of what we're trying to achieve there. Are we funding something that might result in victory for NATO, for Ukraine, for the United States? Or are we funding a, yet again, never-ending conflict in a proxy war that none of the people voting for this are going to go put themselves in danger for, after we've already spent $113 billion, by the way, unpaid for? You noticing a common theme here? Almost everything we do around here is unpaid for. Hell, if you look at our annual tax revenues, which in 2022, by the way, were as high as they've ever been, those tax revenues only pay for mandatory spending. That is DC swamp speak for Social Security, Medicare, increasing amounts of veteran spending, all of the things that are on autopilot. All of that basically adds up to the revenues we bring into the Treasury, which I think is somewhere around $4 trillion. All of the other stuff, the Department of Defense, the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, HHS, this building, Congress, Senate, the White House, the FAA, all of that is borrowed money. Every penny of it is borrowed money. How can we look at our kids and grandkids straight in the face and say, we're not killing the country that was given to us? Because we are. And my colleagues on the other side of the aisle always blame it on tax policy. I will absolutely, as I said in the Budget Committee, have any conversation about tax policy my friends on the other side of the aisle want to have. But what I will not allow my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to do is blame deficits on tax policy. In 2022, 19.6% of the American GDP was sent back to Washington, D.C., the highest level in history. It ain't a revenue problem. It's not. We have always, since we've had tax policy, been somewhere around 17.5% of American GDP, that is everything we earn, comes back here to Washington. This year, I think it's good. Last year, I think it was about 17.5%. It peaked, 2022 came back down. So you got all that money, and yet we can't fund all of the stuff we've promised or that we decide to do. I had friends, people back home, constituents say, why'd you vote no on a bill for ALS? Why'd you vote no on a bill for cancer? Well, I'm a cancer survivor. I've had friends with ALS. I voted no because we don't have any money. I voted no because we're lying to the American people. Both sides of the aisle, but with all due respect, particularly my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, who just blame it on tax policy and then ignore spending like drunken sailors. And on our watch, the footnote in history for my tenure in the House of Representatives is going to be that I destroyed the country. I mean, I'm proud that I voted no for most of this garbage. But for this moment in time, every member of this body, your legacy, your tombstone is going to be that you destroyed the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world. That's going to be the legacy of this House of Representatives, of the next House of Representatives, of last Congress's House of Representatives. Because we utterly refuse to responsibly do our job. $34 trillion of debt. When I ran for office in 2018, it was $21 trillion. I've been here for 5 years. 5 years. And it's gone up $13 trillion. I've voted against virtually every penny of it. But that doesn't make me feel any good because we're still up $13 trillion. And I would just say to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, what are we going to do about it? Have another study? Put together another working group? Or what if maybe we actually did our damn job, set a cap, and spent under that? Novel concept, I know, that every business, every nonprofit, every family in America largely has to contemplate. But we're going to have legislation that is going to come before us in 2 weeks. You know why? Because the government funding is going to expire in 2 weeks. Now again, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have been driving an agenda through the administration, the Senate, my colleagues here in this chamber that spends more money, regulates the heck out of the entire country, shutting down the internal combustion engine, leaving us with wide open borders, letting immigrants out without bail, making our streets unsafe, perpetuating endless wars, driving up inflation. My Senate Republican colleagues, unfortunately, too often want to join with them. On the bill, the Ukraine bill, Taiwan, Israel funding has no border security, is unpaid for, has no mission. 22 Republicans decided that would be a good bill to join. With friends like these, as they say. So we'll get a bill in 2 weeks to keep the lights on and keep funding government. Something most of my constituents question. Most of my constituents come up to me and say, shut down the border or shut down the government. They're sick of open borders. They're sick of fentanyl deaths. They're sick of their livestock getting out. They're sick of having people break into their homes. They're sick of their schools getting filled, their hospitals getting filled, their jails getting filled. They're sick of what's happening to their country. But here's the thing. My Republican colleagues rightly, properly impeached Alejandro Mayorkas for a total failure to carry out his duty, a total failure to faithfully execute the laws of the United States, lying to me under oath in a House Judiciary Committee hearing, lying to the American people about whipping Haitian migrants. The House of Representatives, led by Republicans, impeached for the second time in history a sitting cabinet secretary. That's not a bright moment for our country, but it was the right thing to do. It'll go over to the Senate, they'll hold a trial. He almost certainly will not be convicted. I don't know if it'll be party line vote, takes 67 votes to do it.